Hello everyone, welcome to the show today. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here. On the show, we will be talking about what's next after the arrest of the controversial WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. We're talking about the fact that Uber has a public offering coming, the latest news from outer space, and so much more. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is our last wake up before spring break, guys. Thank you so much for supporting us. We're going to be on at least on a hiatus for the show for a good few months. But yeah, the wake up is not dead yet. We will be back on the air soon, but we are going to be off the air for the new spring season. So stay tuned to the latest on STMU, and I'll be letting you know when we're coming back on our shows and stuff. But this is going to be our last episode. This is actually going to be what is it now? This is going to be our 60th episode that we got right now. Pretty incredible stuff. Love to see that, and it is quite a turn, and you love to see it. Thank you so much for all the support that you've been able to give us. All right, so yeah, right now we turn to our first big story today. The indictment against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange that was unsealed on Thursday makes no mention of his website's role in the Russian interference with the 2016 election, probably what people thought was going to be his most indictable crime. We talked about this a lot. For further details, you can check it out on Newsflash from the problems maybe that with this indictment. So yeah, I highly encourage you to check out Newsflash for more details on this, because I'm not really going to go cover it again in that much depth. But yeah, it remains unclear whether his arrest will answer lingering questions. Among them is, if anything, Assange knew about Guccifer 2.0, a hacker whom U.S. officials have identified as a front for Russian operatives. Assange, bearded and bedraggled, was dragged from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he had been sheltered since 2012. He was charged with in the U.S. with conspiring to hack into a Pentagon computer network as part of the process that brought WikiLeaks a trove of classified material from the U.S. in 2010 with Chelsea Manning. The narrow indictment was not really a relief to some of those who feared that a case against Assange could undermine press freedom, because the way this was reported here is kind of falsely. This is from the New York Times here. This says, quote, he was charged in the U.S. with conspiring to hack into a Pentagon computer network. No, it just says that in the title, but there's no actual mention of hacking and conspiring to help hack. Like, actually did more than, like, it doesn't really reach the level of Assange saying, okay, this is we're at a co-coordinator level. So, like, it's not a good situation. So, that is, it's definitely somewhat misleading reporting. Yeah, from his beginnings as a teenage hacker in Australia, Assange has always been a deeply divisive figure. And Assange indicated that he's most likely going to be fighting extradition. It's going to take years. He's likely to argue the case is politically motivated. So that's the latest on our friend Julian. President Omar Hassan al-Bashir lost his 30-year grip on Sudan on Thursday after months of street demonstrations, but protesters' jubilation was tempered by the uncertainty about what might replace al-Bashir. The military said it would lead a 2-year transition with Sudan's constitution suspended. That's always good. Just suspending the constitution there. Al-Bashir has long played up his humble origins, even for an autocrat. He had a low reputation in the West. The International Criminal Court accused him of playing the essential role in the genocide of the western region of Darfur in 2000s. He's like the spider at the center of the web. He could pick up on the smallest tremor, then definitely used his personal political retail skills to manage the politics of the army. So yeah, not anymore. He's been really quite adept at managing and fixing some of these problems here, but he couldn't do it quite. He couldn't really figure out how to do it all in the end. Yeah, so after nearly 4 months of protests, dozens of deaths at the hands of the security forces, and endless chains of revolution had finally come to this. The ouster of a despised leader who ruled the country plagued by famine and war for nearly 30 years. The euphoria quickly soared, though, when protesters realized who had replaced al-Bashir. The somber man reading the speech on television was Lieutenant General Awad Mohammed Ahmed Ibn Auf, the defense minister and a confidant of al-Bashir. So literally someone who kind of they saw as being somewhat in al-Bashir's pocket, or working with him. He'd been accused even of perpetrating war crimes in Darfur. The protesters fell silent as he laid out his terms, the release of political prisoners, but also a two-year transition steered by a military council, the suspension of Sudan's constitution, and the dissolution of government, and curfew starting at 10 p.m. that night. Loud groans and lamentations rippled through the crowd, followed by a current of anger, saying, quote, "We do not want to replace a thief with a thief. We don't want the same guy," others shouted. It fell once, it can fail again. That's what they were saying. They were not happy now that they had this. They were successful in this revolution, and this guy who's going to suspend the Constitution, not really give anything to these people, is really taking back power there. So it's not all calmed down yet. That now that the al-Bashir is ousted, his regime is still very much intact, and that's why a lot of people are not feeling comfortable about it. Protesters were caught between their jubilation at the ouster of al-Bashir, a ruthless leader who promised greatness but ultimately brought war, international isolation, and economic ruin, and their abiding anxiety over what will follow him. What has just been stated for us is a coup, and is not acceptable. A spokeswoman for the Student Youth Professionals Association has been organizing the protests. They are recycling these faces, and this will return to where it has always been. So yeah, that is what is going on there. So people are really not feeling comfortable about it with the new guy who's pretty much the VP almost, or the defense secretary, put in American terms, to the guy who just got ousted. So yeah, like all these people from the Darfur situation, like they've always denied responsibility. But saying someone's wanted to suspend the Constitution and's been accused of such heinous things by the International Criminal Court should definitely raise a lot of eyebrows and pay attention and very closely, I think, to the situation in Sudan. So I almost said Japan there. All right, yeah. So Scott Kelly spent 340 days in the International Space Station, experienced genetic mutations and declines in cognitive test scores. NASA reported the findings on Thursday, offering a hint about how space travel affects the body. Kelly's twin brother found himself a former astronaut, underwent identical tests on Earth to prove a comparison. So the Israeli moonlander appears to have crashed. It would have been the first time a private spacecraft reached the lunar surface. SpaceX also successfully launched its Falcon X rocket, now the most powerful in the world, for the second time. Capturing the first image of the black hole required the work of more than 200 researchers. 40 were women, and one, Katie Bauman, became a real face for the project. She helped develop the picture. She was kind of out there speaking about it publicly. Yeah. And yeah, it was just kind of really a flurry of outer space news there to cover. This black hole, this moonlander, SpaceX, and the Kelly Bros. But yeah, so that's all very interesting stuff. On the other hand, something not as interesting is Uber. Before what's expected to be the largest initial public offering in years, IPO, the ride-hailing service Uber said on Thursday said it lost $1.8 billion last year, renewing questions about the sustainability of its business. The company's prospectus showed a slowdown in revenue growth. The details: Uber's main rival in North America, Lyft, went public last month and appears to be going faster. The IPO expected next month could value Uber at around $100 billion. Many stand to get rich, though. Not most of the drivers integral to Uber's success. So that's an important angle to look at it. For example, we have Peter Ashlock. He's going to be 71 next week. He racked up more than 25,000 trips as an Uber driver since 2012. His Nissan Altima has 218,000 miles on it, nearly the distance to the moon. His passenger rate him at 4.93 out of 5 stars. His favorite review, quote, "Dude drove like a cab driver," unquote. While he's an integral part of Uber's success, Ashlock is barely getting by. His 2018 tax return will show an adjusted gross income in the neighborhood of $40,000, better than 2016 and 2017. But he has maxed out his 3,200 credit limit at local Midas car repair shop, and needs to come up with $5,000 to pay his taxes. He has Social Security, but no savings to buy a car that will let him keep working. So he's been driving for Uber, and Uber is just, again, the problem. It's not enough to make a living, and that's really probably the biggest issue with it as it stands today. Like, there's really not anybody who's taking care of these people, and whether Uber is going to finally force and respond to the challenge that Amazon released recently, which is to pay its workers a living wage. I think that would be obviously to be very good, but or some kind of reward for trips or whatever. It would be 25,000 trips. That's pretty incredible. Yeah, but it's really rough to see those kind of wages, and if only there was some way that we could spread awareness along the workers of Uber. How could that be? Yeah, I don't know if some sort of union action or something's going to happen, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see the plight of the drivers here who have not really been paying attention to in the situation at all whatsoever. But anyway, from that now we're going to have to turn to quick hits today. Our last quick hits before the spring break, everybody. The White House considered releasing apprehended migrants into so-called sanctuary cities represented by Democratic lawmakers, according to people familiar with the proposal. The idea was rejected by immigration authorities. Michael Avenatti is already facing fraud claims and claims of extortion as well. Those charges. The lawyer was known for representing the porn star Stormy Daniels, was accused by federal prosecutors on Thursday of stealing millions from clients and lying about his income. Greg Craig, ex-Obama aide, has been indicted with lying to the Justice Department and hiding information about his work for the government of Ukraine. Seems to be, probably a lot bigger deal if the guy was his campaign manager or something. But that would never happen to a president. Never, never, never. There's been an arrest in church fires as the 21-year-old son of a sheriff's deputy has been charged with after 3 predominantly black churches in Louisiana had set ablaze. It's a pretty crazy story. Pretty much what happened was, the detectives had noticed the same pickup truck in surveillance video footage near each of the 3 predominantly black churches that have been set ablaze. They found the charred remains of a particular brand of gas sold at a local Walmart. Then the pieces came together, and the authorities announced the arrest of a 21-year-old white man who is the son of the local sheriff's deputy and aficionado of a subgenre called heavy metal called black metal, whose most extreme practitioners in Norway have engaged in church burning, vandalism, and killing. So somehow there happen to be all black churches. I don't know. Pretty crazy, right? Thursday morning news conference announcing the arrest of Holden Matthews, the authorities said that they had not concluded whether their investigation could not say whether racism played a role. I wonder what they're going to find. Though the motive was less clear, the results brought a measure of peace for a rural Cajun community who had been really on edge since the first of the fires occurred back in March. Monica Harris, a member of the Greater Union Baptist Church, had been uneasy since April 2nd when the 129-year-old sanctuary was destroyed. She was baptized and married there, and her parents, who died last year, are buried in the cemetery in the church grounds. So, yeah. It is incredibly disturbing to see that happen especially in a state like that. So it cannot be justified or rationalized, says Governor John Bel Edwards of Louisiana. So that's a very disturbing story, just to say the least. Finally, we're talking about Disney's streaming service. The company has offered a long-awaited details about its plan to fight the tech giants who have moved into the entertainment business. Disney Plus, a subscription video service, will cost $7 a month and arrive on November 12th. The Department of Energy wants to roll back efficiency standards for light bulbs. The bulbs inventor, Thomas Edison, wouldn't improve, as 2 of his great-grandchildren write in an op-ed. So that's interesting. Thousands gathered for the funeral procession of the rapper Nipsey Hussle in Los Angeles on Thursday. Thousands of mourners, including Stevie Wonder of Snoop Dogg, gathered for a bittersweet memorial to a local hero who was fatally shot last month. So, yeah, very, very tough stuff for the rap community, who has all been kind of dealing with the loss of this guy, Nipsey Hussle, for a very long time. All right, so, yeah, that is just about it for us today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to us over these now past 60 episodes. I would not have had any other way. Really like how the show is going so far. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be coming back stronger than ever. We'll let you know about our return.